It's not about win or lose. It's about win or learn. It's about becoming the man you were made to be. You're listening to Undefeated Men.
Spartans! What is your profession?
Hey there, Undefeated Men. Welcome to another podcast with Arden and Cal. We're back again. Excited to talk to you guys about a subject I think means a lot to all of us, and that's really about facing giants, modern-day Goliaths, what we today are really battling. You know, one thing that we always think about is that story with David and Goliath, right? You know, David comes out there, he's got his little sling, he's facing this massive man, and he is going to have to take that on. The just, you know, audacity that this little shepherd guy, would even not don armor, not take a sword, not wear a helmet, and go out and face this fierce warrior, you know, of the Philistines, always makes our heads kind of, you know, explode in a way. But sometimes that's what we're called to do here in life. We're going to today call out the giants that keep us all stuck, that make us silent, that make us soft, or they sideline us. We're going to address those things head on. Now, you might not face a giant sword and spear-wielding warrior like David did, but make no mistake, modern men face giants just as dangerous. This is the kind of giant that doesn't show up with spears, but with screens. You know, they may not bring swords, but they bring weapons that cause deep wounds, such as fear and shame. And if we don't find something within us to help us face these modern giants, they are going to take us out. So let's name them, let's fight them, let's agree to never give up and never get in. And I ask you, Arden, what is holding you back from being the man God wants you to be as far as giants in your life?
Well, it's funny you mention all this, like these giants right here, modern day giants, and there's hundreds of them that we all as men.
We picked five.
We picked five. We all as men face, and we think that since, you know, they don't really have, we can't really put I guess a name to the face kind of deal, that is not, it's not there, right? And it's like, man, but these cause more damage than
Huge
Goliath ever did. And, you know, than the Philistines probably ever did. Millions and millions of people are affected by this. I'd say every man at some point in their life are affected by this. And we didn't even put in like a massive one, which is porn in here, but that is another big one. Just because we talked a little bit about that and we wanted to have it is in here? Okay.
It's part of addiction, yep.
Okay, yeah, okay. I just didn't see it literally named, but we literally can bring that up as well. But these massive, massive giants. And a lot of it, we get so literal sometimes. We think, the Bible. We don't have these crazy battles that the Bible had back, especially in the Old Testament. When we do, they're just more. I guess we've been slowly boiled by them, and we're
the frog in the pot.
We are.
Yeah.
We are the frog in the pot, and they're incredibly damaging. So, I mean, we can go ahead and list these.
Yeah, the five giants, you know, what we're calling these modern-day Goliaths. And to Arden's point, we don't specifically call out some of them. I went for categorization.
More of a vague, not a vague, but like a bigger...
A category
bucket.
rather than the specific ones. You know, like, so for example, isolation. You know, that's just disconnection from people and relationships. Okay, we choose to isolate ourselves. There's all manner of different ways that we inappropriately isolate. You know, addiction. How are we numbing our minds? It could be porn. Yeah. That might be alcohol.
Drugs,
Yeah, there's all
any
kinds
addiction,
of things.
no matter what it is, whatever has the main floor in your life, regardless of whether it has a main floor or not, whatever you're addicted to, you can't live without. That has to stop.
Yeah.
That giant has to die.
If it's keeping you from being the man that God wants you to be, you've got to give it up.
Yeah.
You know, if you're addicted to being a great family guy, that's a single addiction. You know, if you're addicted to loving the Lord Jesus, hey, we'll give you that. You know, so it's not a single one, but if we're taking addiction, it's going the wrong way.
The
we're addicted
addictions
to the wrong
that
things.
damage your life, no
damage
matter
your life.
how many times someone could maybe bring up an argument saying all those addictions are good for you, they're not. There are hundreds and thousands of millions of cases where they're not. They're so bad for you. They destroy you as a man, your family, your wife, your spouse, your relationships. Everything kind of goes to the back seat. Cultural confusion, and we're specifically going to name, masculinity under attack. Men are under attack, and as guys, as a general society, we are letting that happen. We're like, hey, guys are no longer be like, hey, we're gonna be real men. We're gonna encourage our sons to be real men, and no, they're falling to the back seat, and they're letting that happen. Yeah. And yes, there are bad men, but that didn't mean masculinity is bad.
That's right. So we want to talk about more appropriate uses of that masculinity. And then we think too, so we got isolation, addiction, that cultural confusion, and what I termed as passive apathy. Okay, that means we just don't care to care. Mm-hmm. We just don't care. You do your own thing. You do whatever that is. That's okay. As long as it's not hurting me, I don't really care much. Well, what about all the people that are being damaged by what's going on there? Why are we being so passive? Why are we showing such apathy?
Passive apathy. People have gotten to the point where truth is subjective. It's not. Mm. Truth is not subjective. Truth is consistently it stays the same. It's truth. Yeah. And then the last one is our past.
Yeah. The generational trauma, right? Of things that went on in the past. And we're going to talk about how to do that. So Arden's going to get us kicked off here. Just start with this first segment. Yeah. Arden.
Yeah, guys, the first segment, Goliath of isolation and disconnection. We were never meant to walk alone, guys. We're not meant to be an island. Mm-hmm. Yet most men today, they don't have a brother. They don't have someone to call on. They don't have that battle buddy. Someone you can just, 2:00 in the morning, say, hey, I need help. And that person's like, when and where. Yeah, when and where. I'll be there. Yeah. Guys don't have that. We're surrounded by noise, notifications, followers, but our souls are completely starved. We have no true connection, and we might have that real connection, real connection. Mm-hmm. And that's the sad part is people are like, oh, my friend is online. That's not a friend. Yeah. Now, if you contact them online and you've seen them face to face, I'm just not saying you can't have a friendship that can develop and start there, but you can't just have an online friendship. That's not a real friendship.
Yeah. Well, yes. And, the thing that we're talking about really is you got to think, okay, so many different scriptures that come to mind when we think about these things, but one that comes to mind, there's a friend that's closer than a brother from Proverbs of talking about that. And that's that 2 a.m. call. Mm-hmm. And so Arden and I are blessed to live here around so much family. We've got heaps of people we can call at 2 a.m.
But even not,
but some people don't have that.
Even not family members. I have people that aren't family members that I could call.
That's right.
And they would be there.
That's right. Same, I got brothers from church. Mm-hmm. I've got neighbors. I can go over and knock on my neighbor's door. I live in a great neighborhood with, just live around great people.
And some of this, when we talk about the Goliath and the giant in the room when it comes to isolation and disconnecting from others, comes from the modern generation too of people not training their kids how to connect with people. Yeah. How to how do you make friends? You got to raise your kids how to be friendly, how to connect, how to have conversations, how to be liked. One thing that my wife and I talk about, we're going to raise our daughter to be a woman of God, a good woman. We're going to raise our son to be a son of God, a good man, a man's man. But we also want other people to like to be around them. Yeah. You want to raise your kid to where you want to be around them. That's right. Other adults are like, man, I like to be. So that also feeds into their future of success when it comes to, connecting to people and isolation. They actually learn how to connect and make friendships and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. I found it, when I was doing some research on this particular matter, I thought it was fascinating to me to learn that 15% of men say they have no close friends. I was like, what? You didn't have a couple of guys you grew up with, your best buddies that you ran around when you were kids? And we always talk about you and your cousins.
Yeah, but that's
your
best
friends.
That's sad.
I mean, you guys did everything together.
Yeah. And that, and that statistic being, if that's the truth, that is just
totally,
that's sad. Not being able to grow up with the memory, the camaraderie of the brotherhood. And that'd be not just disappointing. That'd be life changing. Yeah. My life would look completely different.
Yeah. And that's 15% with no close friends. And then the next, 27%
report. Yeah,
yeah,
only
you go-
27% of men reporting to have only six or more friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, only 20%.
Yeah. That's just so that's down from, just so you guys to put that in perspective, it's down from 55% 3 decades ago. So,
Yeah.
30 years ago when I was a young man, so, Arden and I are roughly separated by 30 years, not
Yeah.
quite. It's not quite that
Yeah,
big of a distance,
close, yeah.
but close. So, when I was Arden's age, as he sits across the table from me, and he's the same age as my oldest son, you guys, people of your generation, so few of them report having these close friends, when well over half when I was your age, we had 6 or more close friends. I remember there always being a gaggle of guys I was hanging out with.
Yeah.
I always had, kind of like my super close group might be like 5 or 6. And then I was like, then you extend that out and you get to like 20, where they were like guys I spent an awful lot of time with, especially that since I was in the military. And, again, when you get into your small units within the military, that's quite a small, tight group of guys that you're doing things with. And then you just have a few circles where you have 5 or 6 in these few circles, and all these circles tie together, and so you end up with, that 20, 30, 40 guys. And so we have to say to ourselves, hey, why are we getting like this?
Yeah.
This is our point, is why are we getting like this? Why are 1/3 of adults over 45 reporting loneliness? With men so significantly impacted, so that's over 45. So that's my generation now. We were all tight 30 years ago. Now, why 30 years later are people so lonely? Why are they reporting such thing? What is going on in society? We have to start changing some things.
We got to fix it.
We got to get on it, guys. I think most of us have heard this scripture at some time in our life, whether you're a Christian or not. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another, or so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. As iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. We've probably all heard that at that some point in our life. I've seen those things. So what are we doing? What are you doing to practice that real life brotherhood?
Yeah.
Do you have? I know, Arden, for you, you're a hunter.
Yeah.
You got hunting partners?
Well, that
I know
too,
you do.
but like suffer
Yeah.
with each other. Like if
Yeah.
they're in suffering and you actually care about that person, suffer with them.
That's right.
Do
alongside them.
hard things with each other, like working out, and a bonding activity. When I mean by that is like going on a hunting trip or something like that you're experiencing an experience together. You're experiencing the same pain. The brutal weather, the harsh conditions, all these different things together, and that builds a friendship, that builds a bond. Like, I was never in the military, you were, but some guys, I've read a lot of military books, and guys who've experienced battle together, they're lifelong friends after that.
Sure.
Lifelong. No matter what happens, they're like, you cannot separate them from what they went through together. And I think that's pretty telling. When nowadays people are like, we're not spending, they're not going through anything hard together. When the first hard, chip falls, they're out of there. We can't have a hard conversation with my friend because I don't want to tell him the truth, or, he's not feeling he's not noticing what I'm feeling, and then I'm done, right? Yeah. You're just cutting the ties, and you will have no friends. The statistics are showing here that people are doing stuff like that, and maybe other things, of course, but they're cutting friends off because of an argument or this or that, and we're ending up here.
It's silly. I can remember, as we talked about some of those things, some of my really good friends in the Marine Corps, and we used to always just kind of laugh about this, right? You get into argument, and you start telling them, hey, whatever you were telling them that was wrong with them, and they're like, yeah, well, I don't think that's wrong. I think you're wrong, and then the argument would get more vociferous, and then it might get physical, and then two guys might actually end up fighting. And this is the difference between guys and girls, ladies. So I'm sorry that boys do this. So the boys or the young men get into a dust up, and they fight each other, and they're wrestling, and before you know it, one of them's on top of the other saying, do you yield? And they'll be saying, no way, I don't. So none of them, they never get them to go. But at the end of the fight, they're like, maybe 10 minutes later, hey, sorry, I punched you. Yeah. Sorry, I punched you back.
Your oldest son and I have thrown fists sometimes, and not that I'm proud of it. I don't know if necessarily.
He's not either.
But I will say, we have that connection, that lifelong connection that he's away right now for about a year. I could see him a year from now and still be just as connected.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what these things build.
That's right. Yeah, where you can jump right back into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife's always blown away by the fact that I can do that with guys that I haven't been around for years, or my brother.
Yeah.
We come together. It's like we were never apart.
Yeah.
She's like, "What? But you guys don't like call each other that often or do anything." They're going, "Yeah."
I tell
that's
my
not our
wife
thing."
I have about like 7 to 8 guys I probably keep up to on a weekly basis, and then I have a group of probably a couple close to 100.
Yeah.
Or maybe if not more that I don't talk to, maybe even on a quarterly or even like a half a year basis, but I could call them up and be like, "Hey," and they're like, we could go hang out and it'd be fun. It'd be a lot of fun.
And so what we're trying to say, guys, is Arden and I are saying, hey, for those of you that don't have this kind of brotherhood, we're not saying, hey, look how great we are. That is not our point at all. We're saying we've made it a priority in our life. That is something that is a huge focus for us. I prioritize real life brotherhood. It's important for me to go and do something that I don't want to do because I know my friend likes doing it. I end up going to my best friend right now that I hang around with, he and his wife and me and my wife, they're like our best friends. So he really likes to go to saunas and do that sort of stuff. And I don't mind a sauna, but I'm not like a super fan. I don't like to get in there and get all sweaty and, go out to eat afterwards or doing something like that. But that's his thing. Yeah. So I'm just like, nope, I'm going to do it. My buddy Jason wants to do it. I go,
so
I don't care. Prioritize.
Yeah,
what does J-Dog want to do? I'm like, sweet. He wants to go to sauna. I'm doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, also like being that friend who can speak the truth, encourage, but not being that sugar friend. Like, hey, you do what you want to do. I'm not going to tell you. I mean, there's that yin to yang to that, but you be that friend like, hey, I'm going to call you on it. I love you. And this is why we're why we're friends. And if you can maintain that level of friendship through that, then that's a good friendship.
Yeah. Better the wounds of a friend is what the good book says. Yeah. It also says that a man who isolates himself seeks his own desire. He rages against all wise judgment. A man who isolates himself seeks his own desire. He rages against all wise judgment. Proverbs 18:1. I just on that verse immediately made me think of this quote. Okay, and I know it's another scripture, but to me, it is the epitome of it. This literally straight from God, guys. It is not good that man should be alone. Okay, of course, then he made a woman. Yeah. He made a woman after that.
Yeah. But in general, it's not good for men. Like,
we're not designed to be alone.
Nobody's meant to be alone.
You said no man's an islander there.
Yeah, exactly.
It don't work.
We go crazy. You go crazy. You're meant to have brotherhood. You're meant to have, a spouse.
So find that men's group, that fitness crew, your hunting buddies.
Yeah. Fishing buddies, golfing buddies.
Yeah, golfing buddies, church buddies.
Pick up basketball, but connect. Like, be the one. If nobody's reaching out to you and you feel like you're maybe at a pickup game, you're like, man, I'm just sitting here. Go talk to somebody. Reach out first. Don't be the one waiting for somebody else to move first. Yeah. Because you might be waiting forever. Maybe they think, maybe you have a RGF face, resting grumpy face. And nobody wants to talk to you. Or you just, they might, be judging you like you're judging them. But be the first one to be the bigger person, put on your big boy pants and go out in there and talk to them.
Yeah, and if you're like Arden and myself, both of us, we're extroverted. Yeah. So it might be on us. It's incumbent on us. And anyone who's like us, you need to reach out to those guys who seem like they're on the fringes, not be in touch.
Introverted.
Say, brother, come on over here. Yeah. What are you doing over there? Come over here. Yeah. Or go and meet them. Say, hey, who are you? I'm so-and-so. Nice to meet you. What you doing here? Who are you? What do you do? Yeah. Just ask them questions about their life. Find out and meet them. Say, hey, you got to come over and meet a couple of guys. As soon as you find some interest, if it's not yours, especially if you're an extroverted person, you probably know someone, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people who are like-minded to this person. Introduce them. Put them together. Make a group for them. Help those guys develop a group.
Yeah, exactly.
And Arden said to reach out first. Don't wait for someone else to go first. Martin Luther King said, we must live together as brothers or perish together as fools. Now, again, he was saying this, of course, in the 60s when there was this racial divide, this nonsensical racial divide. Yeah. And I get what he was saying. We must live together as brothers or perish together as fools. And I loved using that quote from him because stop focusing on how you're different.
Yeah.
Start focusing on
Or
how
how
you're
they
the
don't
same.
how they don't understand you.
How they don't understand it. How about what you understand about each other?
Yeah.
How can you come alongside one another? Stop trying to focus on your differences and focus on how we're the same. And I think when we get ourselves
and understand that the differences
helps.
are the beautiful thing about the world we live in. As far as when it comes to like the truth, like, hey, you have a different personality, Mikal. You are extremely organized, and just doing, while you like hanging out with me, and some of the things I do might probably get on your nerves if it was you doing that.
Yeah.
But like, you learn to love it. You learn to get along with it. You learn to figure it out. And like, we've done several different activities together, and I'm not exactly like you are, but I'm like, I actually like living in Cal's organized day for a day in the life of Cal.
Yeah.
It's a change, do it. It might be different, but it's a change.
Yeah, and I think you got to, I flipped that right back on you because, so Arden's father and I have long time been friends. We've known each other for, almost 3 decades now.
Yeah.
And I love going over to visit Arden's dad, Sam. I love going over to see Sam. You know why? Because Sam and I are pursuing like the same things. But the difference is I'm almost always still in the planning phase, and he's always in the implementation phase.
Yeah.
Now, his implementation is never going how he'd like it because he just leapt into it.
45 of them, like implementing 45 different projects.
Yeah, or doing 45 things at once. And he does. I used to always joke with him saying, hey, you start
That's
something.
me. That is me.
Yeah, he starts something, gets to a block, then he starts something new. Gets to a block, then he starts something new. Eventually, he's got so many things going, he eventually gets back to that first one again. And so, but that's okay. I love talking to him about it, and he likes to talk to me about it because I've got some ideas because I've been thinking about the same thing. And eventually, I do the things. I just walk out with probably a plan that I probably won't vary a whole lot, whereas he walks out and plans on the go.
Yeah.
And so some people will say one's better than the other, and I will say it depends on who you are.
Yeah.
And so he's very successful with his plan on the go method, and I'm successful with my plan before I go method. In the end, we get to the same spot, and he and I laugh about that all the time, that we get to the same spot, sometimes roughly in about the same amount of time. I just spend longer in the planning phase than he does. He doesn't enjoy the planning, so he skips it and goes right into, what can I do on this today? Where I would say, how can I plan to be able to do this tomorrow? I think that's just a subtle mind shift, and both of us are very successful in the way that we approach that.
Yeah.
So
it's just the yin to yang. It takes a whole bunch of different people to make the world go round.
Yeah. He energizes me, and I think that I energize him too.
But things that you do, he would like blow his brain. He wouldn't like I'm just saying he hates doing an in-depth numbers and accounting like you do.
Yeah.
He could do it if you really focus it, and he's done similar stuff, not as in-depth as you do, but he didn't love it.
Yeah.
He didn't love it. He loves to go out there and like get his hands dirty, and not that you don't. I'm just saying like that's what he wants to go start it now, and you'd rather finish the whole calculation in the algorithm or whatever.
That's right, absolutely. Yeah, I happen to be drawing up house plans as we speak right now, and literally I'm doing pretty much the placement of all studs, spacing of all studs, windows, doors, etc. And I like even just doing this thing can almost make me giggle if I think of the way your dad would be. He'd just be like, okay,
like, here's a picture
someone take me out back and like shoot me.
Exactly.
I don't want to be doing this anymore. But I kind of love that stuff. So yeah, it's the different thing about us. So, okay. So on this first one, we want to avoid isolation, and that's by embracing our sameness that we can find with other people, actively trying to develop those relationships. But that brings us to our second one, where we're talking about the Goliath of addiction. Okay. And our addiction is really actually the category is our addiction to numbness. We're trying to numb ourselves from all the suffering or the things that we don't like in life by trying to give ourselves either a false positive, a false joy, a false high. We're trying to do something that we think makes us feel better. And often that thing that makes us feel better does, but only temporarily. And it starts the tidal wave of the things that we're going to do. So we get numb with porn, we get numb with some Netflix series, alcohol, maybe it's your fantasy football league, food, whatever it is that dulls the pain of life. We love to get behind that numbing behavior. And what really is if you dig behind every numbing behavior, what is behind there is a wound that needs healing.
When you're trying to escape something instead of attack it front on.
That's
So
right.
this is like, it's like this is the giant, and you're, instead of going at it and facing
whatever's holding you back,
facing it,
Yeah.
you're trying to go into the tent and
hide.
pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And that's what this is all about. And you mentioned porn. I wanted to bring up a couple little statistics, and this is the sadness of it.
Yeah.
But 70 to 80% of men aged from 18 to 30 view pornography at least once a month.
Mhm.
And that's how big of a giant that is. And then there's the other forms of addiction, drug, and a crazy amount of stuff that's keeping us as men back from our true potential. And, if you can just defeat that giant, your family, yourself would realize such an incredible amount of freedom, and you magnified tenfold, like the what you're capable of. You set free from that because you destroyed it. Obviously, with God, you can't do it by yourself. But I was thinking about this analogy that I heard the other day, and like they were talking about David and Goliath, right? And that's when we talk about Goliath, giants, we think about David and Goliath. We were just talking about that. But David, he probably was afraid, very much so, but he didn't fear the end outcome because God had anointed him. And we as men, we know as Christians, we know the end picture. God has already won the battle. And we often get caught up in this, myself included, get caught up in facing the giant and we're afraid of the outcome. When in reality, God's already won.
Yeah.
So we should just be, bravery isn't, as C.S. Lewis put it, isn't the absence of fear. It's facing, what you have to, I'm butchering the quote, but it's not the absence of fear. It's facing what you have to go through, and with bravery while you still have fear. I don't have the quote exactly in front of me, but it's such a powerful quote, and I love that. You still have fear, but you're still pushing through it, and you're facing that with that's bravery, pushing through with the fear.
Yeah. So not the absence of fear, but the strength of courage to continue despite the fear.
Yes.
That's I don't know the quote
but
that you're referring to.
That's very similar.
That's a version of
yes,
the same thing.
Yeah.
So whether it's addiction to porn or to drugs, you probably have known. All of us have probably known somebody in their lives who we can see the train wreck that their life has become because of that addictive personality. And that could be somebody's food. They're 400 pounds.
That could be yourself.
Yeah. That could be drugs. They're 120 pounds. That could be, and again, wasted effort. You're like, man, that guy was the best, whatever.
Yeah.
And then he got hooked on that drug, whatever that drug was, or that alcohol, whatever that alcohol was. And now he's not that guy. He got addicted to porn. He was married and had 3 children, and he was this great guy, had his life before him, and then porn took down his life.
Yeah.
He got into child pornography or whatever. He got into all these things. Absolute train wreck, guys. Yeah. And so what we want to say is we've all been addicted to something. And the addiction could be something as simple as laziness.
And they start off small too.
Yeah. They start small.
Yeah.
It could I could just be addicted to laziness.
Yeah.
And instead of facing these giants like we were talked about, I don't take action. I get lazy about it. Yeah. I don't take the trash out, and the trash piles up, and it causes problem. So that's what this addiction is. So, what we need to do is recognize that these things, whatever they are, they're going to contribute to your insomnia, your stress, your depression, whatever that addiction is. It's going to it stimulates a dopamine release, that's what gives you that high at the time, whichever one it is. But there's it's rewiring your impulse control in a negative manner. So now you don't have control over your impulses that you should have. So instead, your brain is rewired to
act on every impulse.
To act on those impulses for whatever that thing is that is addicted to you. So it makes it, again, forces you into this cycle of, oh man, I'm stressed at all, I need a drink.
Yeah,
I'm stressed at all, I need to go to porn.
Yeah.
I'm stressed at all, I need to smoke.
Yeah.
I'm stressed at all, I guess I need to drink coffee. Whatever it is, if you're
but
truly
they take
addicted
a hold
to
of
something,
you you have no control.
That's
that
right.
anymore.
You lose control.
You lose control, and that's the sad thing about that giant. It just completely disables your life.
Yeah. And every one of them increases your levels of anxiety, depression, social disconnection, and leads to poor cognitive performance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I listed in our notes, I was literally just talking, I chose one subject to keep us in one that wasn't that difficult. And I was just talking about screen time,
That's
like
a
on your
small
phone.
one. That
Yeah, I was
actually
using a
gets
small
big.
one, but it's the same across all the addictions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. But it's like I've noticed before, and I had to check myself on it. I like Facebook Marketplace, right? Love searching through Facebook Marketplace, all the deals and the different things, and other people's junk could be my treasure.
One man's trash is another man's treasure.
But like I'll notice, like I'll get off, and I'm like, wait a minute, I need to make sure I'm not taking my time away from my family. But I'd get off of Facebook and put it down, and I pick up my phone again, immediately open it up, and I'm like, I was just on here. I've searched. I don't need to do anything else on there. And that would happen. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to take a chill pill and control myself.
Yeah.
Because it'd just be like, oh, just.
Or you find how long you spend on that.
Well, that like the
Yeah, you
average
spend a crazy amount
teenager
of time.
scrolls the Eiffel Tower in length.
Yeah.
It's 6 inches at a time. The Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, well over 1,000 feet, I guess.
It's just
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. That's incredible. So, ways we can combat that is we got to think about, you have to, in order to be able to slay Goliath, slay that giant, you got to name it.
Yeah.
You got to call it out.
You gotta
What is it? I
recognize.
got to say, when David came there, he didn't just say, I'm going to, he named who he was going to fight.
Yeah,
I'm going
hey,
to fight
you.
Goliath.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, whether it was Goliath or not, he knew his target.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was going after that target. He wasn't just going to fight any Philistine. He was going to find that one that was, belittling his God, belittling the people of Israel. In his mind, he was like, hey, I'm going here to fight this. And that's what you got to do. You got to name it so that you can go and fight it. And you got to replace that escape with truth. What is the truth? You have to figure that out related to that behavior. You got to challenge yourself in brotherhood.
Yeah.
And that challenge is, you got to challenge yourself to live by that truth and stop living by the lie. And you got to find a brotherhood to come alongside you. That's why all these care programs that are out there work for people that are in drugs. They get a group of people together who suffer from the same thing. And whether it's 12-step process, Alcoholics Anonymous, or any one of these other ones like this, there's been great success with these things because people came together, and it was that brotherhood or that sisterhood that allowed people to walk through that. I think of a friend of mine. He struggled to go to the gym. I went to the gym with him because it was helpful for him. And the way that he got himself to the gym every morning, he didn't want to go. And we only lifted 3 days a week.
Knowing that you were coming.
Yeah, he couldn't fail us.
Yeah.
And so there was actually 3 of us that were going together. And 2 of us didn't really need to go to a gym. We were going to work out whether we went to a gym or not.
Yeah.
But we were doing it for our other friend. And he said, thank you so much, guys. So, we did this program together for a year and whatnot like this. And for him, it was the thought that he would fail us.
Yeah.
That's what got him there in the morning. It was the brotherhood, and he was trying to overcome something. And the helpful thing that we did was just consistently be there so that he could come be there with us. And like I said, I didn't need that. I could have worked out at home, but for me, it was more important to go to that gym to support my friend so that he would show up.
Yeah, you built your discipline in other ways that helped you in private now. He just needed that camaraderie.
That might be you. You need that workout partner. Or that addiction get over partner. Whatever that likes. A scripture that comes to mind is 1 Corinthians 6:12. For those of us that will find this helpful, is, all things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of any. And if you follow that scripture out there in 1 Corinthians 6, it, starting there in verse 12, like 12 through 17 or 18, go ahead and read through that little passage and look at that. It is getting to a very clear point of, hey, we're free to do these things, but we shouldn't use our freedom to do things that are harmful to ourselves or to others. But rather, we should say, hey, this thing's bringing me into, this has gone, maybe you just started with the one drink of beer and
another
it
powerful
got something else.
thought that I think is pretty intriguing is like, I heard someone say, like, the reason why the flesh doesn't care, it's so hard to fight the flesh, because the flesh isn't going with us when we go to heaven.
Yeah.
It's staying here.
Yeah.
And it wants to take as much pleasure as possible because it's not going with us.
Yeah. That's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about it that way. But it's that consideration of, and I like that, and it kind of fits in a little bit with this next quote, but of thinking, hey, what are the future ramifications of the decisions that I'm making now? And again, like Arden was saying, your flesh is making decisions based on the here and now and is not looking towards eternity.
Mm-hmm.
And something that will help you to think about even the here now is that the only person you are destined to become is the person that you decide to be. Now, that was actually said by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and I'm no Emerson fan. Okay, he's an American philosopher. He went down all kinds of roads that I would not go down.
But the
and
quote
recommend I
itself, to its core, is quite
yeah,
powerful.
it's very thought-provoking.
Yeah.
Okay, if you say you're destined to be something, we'll use the flesh and the what we call the spirit. From a biblical perspective, the flesh is the part of us that is stuck in the carnal and doesn't have this long view of eternity with God. It has a very short-term view here, so I look for that short-term pleasure. But if I'm destined to be in heaven, I need to decide that's who I am. I'm this person that's going to be here. So this stuff in this world just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you decide that, let's just say it's something I don't want to do. Okay. So I don't want to drink alcohol, then just decide I'm someone who doesn't drink alcohol.
Yeah. You don't drink.
I just don't drink.
Yeah.
I know heaps of people that made that decision. Well, my father was an alcoholic or this or that or whatever reason.
Instead of saying I can't drink, say I
Yeah.
don't drink.
I don't.
Yeah.
I could, but I don't. I'm not a drinker.
Yeah.
You might decide you are something. I
Well,
am a basketball
like
player,
when
so
lo-
you'll
when-
start playing basketball.
When lots of people they struggle with something and then they say I can't, they're still giving that window of opportunity. I can't, with maybe I can someday or can't. But if you say I don't,
That's not who I am.
no.
Yeah, and I say that. I've been there with people, and they ask me if I want to do something. I say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't do that. It's not something I don't have a problem with. If that's something that you want to do, that's fine." And again, I wasn't talking about something that was open.
And if you're
sin,
around
but-
someone that is encouraging you to do
Yeah.
something that you are firmly against, I would strongly advise definitely having a conversation with like, hey, stop trying to encourage me in doing something I don't want to do and I've convicted against, or we're gonna have to cut this off.
yeah, and
Can't be
that
around that
might be a
person.
time. That's
Yeah.
right. That you would actually have to either close or isolate that portion of your friendship.
Yeah.
That friendship can only go so far because that person wants to do things you don't want to be involved in.
Yep. Next segment, guys, is Goliath of cultural confusion. In today's world, masculinity is under attack. Men are afraid to be strong, and afraid to lead, afraid to protect. But biblical masculinity isn't toxic; it's sacrificial. Jesus is our model for that. He is the top tier model. He wasn't soft. He wept. He flipped tables. He showed anger. He was a man's man.
Yeah.
And
all
he
the
wasn't, as
range.
pictures show, probably skinny and weak. He was a very strong man. He was a tradesman. All of these things, and we as men, we
Survived epic beatings.
yeah
He's a pretty tough dude.
yeah, not just epic. I mean, the worst. The worst. And in today's society, toxic masculinity, and there are definitely toxic men, just horrible men out there. But then it discourages other men to be like, hey, we are real men. It's nothing wrong with being hey, I'm a man, and I'm proud of it. I'm not ashamed of it, and I will open doors for women. I will be chivalrous. I will still. There's the beautiful side of men is being protective by nature.
Yeah.
There is the man anger that does need to be curbed and checked, but that is a beautiful side. The reason why men, we fight battles, we fight war better than women is because we're men. That's how God designed us. We designed us to be protective, to cut off that fear switch and go into it.
Yeah. Yeah. We have that certain amount of physicality, certain aggressive mindset and stuff that, if used correctly,
learn to love it.
are great.
Men are built different. Mm-hmm. Like I said, Josiah and I, we fought. A lot of my actually closest friends, I'm not saying you need to throw fists with everybody, but a lot of my closest friends growing up, when you're going to that puberty stage, you're all real hothead roosters, and you're just going at it. And I'm friends to those guys to this day, but we threw fists. But you guys, their brains just tend to go that way.
Yeah.
You know, you go to like, oh, let's
fight. Let's
let's
duke
fight
it
this
out.
out. Let's duke it out.
So let's go, bro.
Or like, we make fun of each other as dudes. Like, hey, you think you're good at that? Watch me. Like, there's that perfect balance of like, you're not being too prideful, but you're bros, you're checking each other, you're having fun, you're joking around. That's that perfect balance. I'm not talking about being an absolute, mean,
Buffoon.
terrible person and making a fool of yourself, because that really is the only person you're really hurting, because then people don't want to hang out with you at all.
Yeah, that's right.
There's the opposite side to that. But I'm saying, like, have fun, like, be guys, encourage each other.
Yeah, so we have to acknowledge, specifically using the one Arden was talking about, that toxic masculinity, that there is toxic masculinity. And most often it works out as today, and why women are so concerned with it, because they've been so affected by it. Women's physical and mental health have been affected by the fact that men inappropriately use violent and aggressive behavior to hurt women, especially children, girls, etc. And so studies show that when men are overly physically aggressive or overly aggressive, verbally, that this increases the stress, the injury, and trauma among women and girls. And there's health studies showing that. And that's from guys. That is toxic masculinity. Rather than using their physical prowess to defend those women and those girls, they're using it to harm and dominate those women and those girls.
You can still be
and
an
that's
extremely manly man and tapping into like, hey, I'm with my wife, I'm with my daughter, I need to tap into the as much feeling side as I can, and listen or talk to them and figure that out. You still do that while being a man's man. Mm-hmm. That's you're dropping that side. You don't have to be like all up in arms and throwing fists all the time. Like that's not what we have to do.
Yeah, that's right. And again, it's that right sizing or correctly using these physical attributes that we've been blessed with, or just the aggressive mindset that men have. Again, we're talking about roostering up when you're teenagers. A lot of that is not necessarily physically aggressive, but it might be verbally or mentally aggressive. Mm-hmm. We really get at somebody verbally and mentally, and of course back that up with a physicality. Mm-hmm. All three unnecessary. Yeah, unnecessary. That's us exercising our strength the wrong way.
Yeah, and if you look at Jesus, he was, he flipped tables. He showed anger. He showed frustration, but he also showed extreme patience and kindness and love, and not in a feminine way, but in like, hey, in a stable way. Like very stable. I'm here in a. He knows himself. Those guys that generally are so puffy and so outrageously show like all their anger and everything, they're generally not stable in who they are as a man. They have some insecurities, some major ones. Right. And they counterbalance that with an inappropriate action in a side where they are to make themselves feel better.
Yeah, to make themselves feel better. So another aspect of this with again the cultural confusion that we have out here is that when we are good men, and again, when we're saying good, that's a reflection of Jesus Christ, the only good man, the only truly good. When we reflect that, as Arden was talking about, Jesus' fierceness, his protectiveness, his loving, his kindness, his patience, his love, his peace, he was all those things. Yeah. So he wasn't just like one. Like he was only, crafting a whip, and then taking that out and overturning tables and driving out the money changers at the temple. He wasn't just that guy. Mm-hmm. He was that guy. He was also the guy that met the woman at the well and looked to her needs. He was also the guy that healed. He was also he was so many different facets of a man. Yeah. So we as men got to say, okay, hey, what is my role? What do I need to do? Well, you need to be involved in your, be there. Like that paternal presence shapes emotional resilience in infants. It's an incredible study that shows that children raised with active fathers have stronger social responsiveness and curiosity, while those who don't, they almost always demonstrate delayed social skills. Okay, so that means they aren't able to be socially responsive. They aren't appropriately curious. Okay, they take these things and they get inappropriate with those things because they didn't have a fatherly present. So guys, we got to be there and be present. and not in a toxic way.
That, and
In
you
a
got to be there. You
non-toxic
got to be
way.
there with your wife, so you both are there. So if you're a crazy guy and you look great, you love your kids, you're great with your kids, but you're not great with your wife, and you guys both aren't there in a stable way for your kids, and like Cal mentioned, being that paternal side and being there for your kids, but also them seeing you with your wife, their mother, and then her being safe and feeling stable and empowered enough to do her job as a mother too. That's where you get a healthy home and a healthy family.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that balanced masculinity. That's what strengthens families and communities. By having that nurturing side, yet being masculine about it, okay, that's going to enhance the family stability, the child development, and healthier social environments everywhere within the United States. So we want to take back manhood of being men. We want to be men. We don't want to be a bunch of sissies.
No, men,
but we don't want to be
shirk on
inappropriately.
responsibilities.
Yeah,
men
aggressive.
don't just leave when it gets tough.
Yeah.
Men don't leave weak people to be hurt. Men protect weak people. That's what real men do. You're not a man if you don't do these things.
Yeah.
You're an insecure boy.
That's right.
It's just a cold, hard truth. You're not a real man.
I love the quote this is probably my favorite quote of the podcast that, I researched to look at. And this is the quote: "You have to be a man before you can be a gentleman." Mm-hmm. Okay. Or we can say you have to be a man before you can be a gentleman. Yeah. You have to be a man first. That's from John Wayne. John Wayne, he was kind of the epitome of a generation of a manly man.
Yeah.
He actually was a good and involved father.
I actually have a story about that.
Oh, yes. Okay.
My great-grandfather, my dad's dad, his dad, was actually acted in The Alamo with John Wayne. Was one of John Wayne's very good close friends, but he was an introvert. So John Wayne asked him to be an extra in The Alamo, and he did it. He has one role in there where he's like, "Right, Davey." That's it. And I have a picture of them both, John Wayne and my great-grandfather, on that side, on my dad's side. But it's quite interesting. He asked him to do other roles, but he didn't want to ever do that because he always had an issue with the amount that John Wayne had a drinking problem. Yeah, that was what he had an issue with. But they were very close friends for a long time, so it was kind of interesting.
I thought John Wayne drank too much. That's interesting. The good book encourages us to be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong. That's directly from 1 Corinthians 16:13. Be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong. That is not weak language, gentlemen. That means we really need to live boldly, love sacrificially, lead humbly. We got to redefine masculinity as strength, but strength under control. And we can do this by rooting our identity in God's word, encourage us to be strong, and to be men.
Well, I've mentioned this before, but I really love how Jordan Peterson puts this as, you're not a good man unless you're capable of doing violence, capable of protecting, capable of doing all these good and bad things, but you have to have been faced with the choice. Yeah,
to do good or do bad.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So if you're a weak man and you can't move or can't do these things, and you've never thought or put yourself in a position of like, hey, like, what would I do in this case? I've thought literally. My wife loves reading real life historic accounts of World War II and concentration camps, horrific things. But I've thought, what would I do if I was in that situation? And then you apply that, and you think about these things. So if you were faced with them, not saying you would do 100% right, but you have at least thought about it. Yeah. So you also got to be fit, you got to be active, you got to be capable of being a good man, being faced with the choice of good and bad.
Right. Otherwise, there is no choice. Yeah. If we always just follow with either empty conformism, or I believe that's why God gives us a choice. Mm-hmm. He gives us a choice. He lets you choose. Yeah. He lets you choose. And so sometimes Christians want to force people one way, and that's not God's way. God's way is to give people a choice and see what they're going to do with it.
And people see it all throughout. Like, you get all these storybooks, you get all these movies about, like, a king, and he has his brother, and his brother's a weak, small, shrimpy dude. Yeah. And the brother dies, and his brother becomes king. And you see him, always a bad king, always a terrible person. Yeah. Because it always works that way, because he was never faced with that much power before. Yeah. Being a good man, he wasn't a good man to begin with.
Yeah. And so then when given the power,
Yeah.
he made poor choices with
Yeah.
it. Absolutely. It's something we want to avoid. And, you know, it's something else we want to avoid. It's kind of like, you know, transition to our next giant that we want to slay is the Goliath of passivity and apathy. So passivity, just not taking actions, and apathy, like we don't care. You know, men are checking out. We are physically, spiritually, emotionally, relationally just checking out of things. We're finding it way easier to scroll or to, you know, smoke something, drink something, do something,
Or
other than what we should be doing, rather than showing up for our family, our friends, our local communities.
Yeah.
And this kind of passivity of choosing this easy road rather than a road that is perhaps less traveled, but with more fulfilling purpose, is killing our society, our children, our wives. Your calling, men, they don't need you to be a bystander to get these things. They all need your children, your wife. Your calling here in life needs you to show up.
Yeah.
God made you for more than being a guy that scrolls Facebook all day long.
Yeah.
Or would you say Facebook Marketplace?
yeah,
Or
we're
Yeah.
made to do, you know, or just nothing wrong with watching movies or playing video games, but don't waste your life doing it.
that's right.
Have a good, if you're wanting to develop, you know, if you enjoy watching a movie with your family, great. You enjoy playing a couple video games with your sons, great. But encourage yourself and your sons not to play video games all the time. Like, these are things to do here and there, and not to take the majority of your life away. You know,
Right.
don't work on the weekends just to drink on, don't work during the week just to drink on the weekends, you know, and party on the weekends. No, like, the weekends are a part of your life. They're meant to reset and make your rest the next week better.
Yeah.
To spend time with your family, to ground yourself. That's, you know, and I know that some people are going to say drinking resets me. I don't mind a drink here and there. I don't mind a couple drinks, but just don't do it to excess.
Yeah.
It's,
A lot of it is that
it's the
excess,
same.
right?
It's the same with
Yeah.
everything. Excess.
Sure. Playing, you know, I was, you know, not many. So like Arden was saying about like Marketplace. For me, I'm a NFL football fan. So I like to watch football games during football season. I like to read about, you know, what matters are going on with different football teams in the off season. You know, so as long as I keep that stuff, I'll just call it in check. In other words, at a reasonable level. That's all fine. As long as Arden's scrolling Facebook once a day for 10 minutes, he's fine to do that. Or how often he or you have to look at what are those guards you're putting in there to make sure that you still have the time for the things that truly matter. You got to schedule intentional time for the things that matter. That means not letting all these time suckers or time wasters take up all your time, whether that's drinking, playing video games, scrolling, whatever you want to name. I don't care what it is. If it's taking up all your time and you're not doing scheduling or have time to do the things that really matter, you need to check yourself. You need to check your schedule and say, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? Am I wasting my life? You probably are.
Well, and then do something that scared me, guys. Calculate. Like I've said it before in other podcasts. I had a problem. I wanted to watch a movie every night because I wanted to zone. I wanted to like get the work day behind me. I wanted to relax. And my daughter would watch something with me. This was even before then, before we even had a daughter. And my wife would be asleep, and I'd be, you know, in bed, or she'd be, you know, on the couch with me asleep, and I'd just watch something. While that wasn't necessarily bad, once in a while, I did it so often that I got convicted, and I started calculating. I was like, man, I calculated all these hours. I was like, that's literally months, if not like close to years, if I were to continue doing this, that you could add that up. That's taking away from your life. You could be learning a skill, spending time with your spouse, you know, a language, all these different things that you say, I never got the opportunity for, but you're just not giving yourself the opportunity to do them because you're distracted. Yeah,
my wife and I, on Father's Day, we were just talking about things over the years. We're just talking about things. And I had realized myself, a little bit of a conviction for me too, I used to do a lot of woodworking. I made all kinds of things. Like I made a whole aircraft carrier with, you know, it's a foldable thing and you could move it around on the floor and it looked like a real aircraft carrier out of wood. And it would roll around and the kids would play in it and stuff like this. And I made a little dollhouse for the girls, all out of wood. I built the stairs, everything, this tiny little house, paint, my wife told me to paint it and all these little things. I mean, it looks, I know you can buy those sort of things. You can buy a dollhouse.
Kits, yeah.
I don't think you can buy the sized aircraft carrier that I made, but the kids, and Jesse probably when he was little, his brothers probably pushed him around on that thing that was big enough for you to push around the house.
Wow.
Had little wheels on it so it'd go around and do all these things. So my point was, I couldn't have done that if I was watching movies all the time, and they weren't as available as they are today. So my judgment on this generation is not that you waste your time, is that, man, I'm wasting my time too.
It's right here.
It's so easy to waste your time on these things.
The sad thing.
Rather than, why aren't you learning some woodworking or hunting? I know that's a habit of yours. Hunting, fishing. These were all things that produce something for your family, for the betterment of your family. How does watching a movie produce betterment for your family?
No, and it doesn't. And also it's taking away from the moment, right? From the enjoying, and it brings you into a dissatisfied, because you're watching somebody else's life. You're watching something that's not your own. To distract you and pull you out. My wife and I took her for our anniversary, our 9th anniversary, back in February, to go watch Andrea Bocelli live in Knoxville. It was awesome. Classic opera singer, just incredible voice. But I was absolutely dumbfounded by the amount of screens that are on. Now I'm fine with like filming things and taking pictures and that, no problem. But there's just so many, like when on the songs that they didn't like, or waiting on a break, there's just so many people on their phones. Like there were 18,000 people there. And I would say at any given point, at least half, if not more, were on their phone. Doesn't mean they weren't enjoying a song here and there. I'm not trying to judge people. I'm just saying the sad part is, like, you weren't just sitting there in the moment with your spouse or your significant other that you came with, or your mom or your dad, whoever you came with, and enjoying the time. Yeah.
So it makes me think right now, helpful segment fact here, guys, is maybe consider an electronic fast.
Yeah.
Put that thing away. Say, hey, we're going to go on vacation. No electronics, no phones, no nothing. Yeah, we'll have a phone by the front door and we'll put the ring on.
Yeah.
And if the phone rings, you have to pick up the phone and say, is this an emergency? No, it's not an emergency. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to call you back next week.
And start caring. You yourself have said, like, you love the vacations that you don't have to pick up your phone, no work, no nothing. That's it. And whenever I go elk hunting, I love those trips because nothing. There's nothing. I have my pager, that I can page my wife, but that's it. You can receive like 1 or 2 word text. It's like, hi, love you. That's it. But no phone. It's so great. It's awesome. Yeah. But it all comes down to caring, guys, and just be convicted. Cal and I are both convicted about these things. We don't want to waste time, and I don't think you guys do either. So identify where you are wasting time, where you're being where you have apathy in your life, passivity, that you're just like not caring enough where you should.
Yeah. So get moving. Your passion is going to follow that action. When Arn was just talking, if you guys, if you don't watch and see the like passion in his eyes when he was talking about, hey, when he's out there hunting, that he makes this conscious choice to go out there and do that. And then he lives out that week of passion. And it was the same thing when I was building that stuff, for my children. And I think to myself, man, I haven't built something in a long time with all my carpentry skills, and I could really just build something. I build cool stuff,
right? You felt accomplished.
Oh, yeah, super
cool.
When
I go hunting, I feel accomplished, and we wonder why this next generation is not feeling accomplished. They feel depressed because they're actually not getting anything done. Besides, in the virtual world, they're getting maybe building worlds in Minecraft and other games, but nothing in the real world that actually helps. Yeah. They're constantly trying to win the video game, but they're not winning the video game of life, the actual game of life, not the video game, but they're just not trying to win life.
Yeah, and that's right. And that's you'll get me onto video games, which is one of my wife's passions that she would root out if she could in the world. But we're encouraged by Scripture to commit our works to the Lord, and our thoughts will be established. So we can start small by maybe just leading dinner prayer, maybe planning a weekend with our son or our daughter. Initiate that hard conversation with your friend. Mm-hmm. Get into those conversations with your friends. Get that stuff going. If you're not, you don't have children or something like this, this might be you and a friend go together. One of my sons just recently went out on a 3-day outing with himself out into, the woods just to think about life, more or less. So he just went and camped and hiked, and that can be a rebalancing strategy for you, wherever you are. I think of your cousin Zadok. Yeah. That one time he went out, I think for 40 days.
Well, he was just gone for a year with his wife in Burma.
Yeah.
a year. No cell phone connection. You got a lot of alone time. Him and his wife are the only ones who could speak English. You got a lot of time to reflect. And I think when we talked about, you're constantly trying to get away from life.
Yeah.
But that's what we have to do. We have to face life because life is a giant. But God's already beaten that giant. We just need to go through it because that's the follow through, or what He's called us to do.
And it's a follow through, and it's taking action.
Yeah.
So this quote's from Teddy Roosevelt, obviously, American president, at the turn of the 20th century. So, around 1900 there, just an iconic figure within the U.S.
I actually want to do a podcast on him someday.
So, it would be a good podcast on his life. It's a very fascinating study. But he said, we do not admire the man of timid peace. We admire the man who embodies victorious effort. I mean, you think about it. Who do you really look up to as a man? Pretty much, we always pick some guy who has clearly put out a bunch of effort to overcome. Even if you're a video gamer, you're looking at the guy who's the top video gamer. If you're looking at sports, it's the guy who's at the top of the sport. And all those guys that get to the top is through a massive amount of effort that has allowed them to be victorious at whatever that thing is they're studying in life.
We apologize for the noise if you guys can hear it. I have a metal roof on the dungeon here, and it's raining cats and dogs outside. So if you can hear just the absolute chatter.
So it'll be. So we might be speaking up for a minute here.
Yeah.
So Arden's going to kind of go into this, our last segment here.
Yeah, Goliath number 5, guys. We're just going to go into father wounds, like generational trauma. So just don't if you have trauma in your past, that can be a giant of overcoming that hurdle, and not using it as a crutch. And I'm not trying to say that you didn't go through something hard if this is you listening to this, but not letting that rule your life. And, what I mean by that is like, oh, I experienced this. It could be anything. And no matter how horrific it might be, don't let that rule your life. This goes deep, guys. Many men are raised without a present, strong, or loving father. The effects of that are brutal. But guys, hear this. Your past does not define your future. You can stop the cycle. You can be the man your father wasn't. You can be the man God called you to be.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the facts here, about 1 in 4 U.S. children, that is over 17.5 million children, grow up without a biological step or adoptive father in the home.
Tragic.
That's tragic.
Imagine how
almost 20 million
shapes the
children.
country.
Yeah, it's shaping our country right now.
Yeah.
1 in 4 grow up with that. And this isn't just their biological dad. This is a stepdad or an adopted dad in their home.
Without a paternal figure in their life,
25%, don't have that. Now, father absence in early life is, of course, we talked a little bit about this earlier, about the good benefits of it, but the absence early in life is linked to higher rates of child depression, behavioral problems, suicide, youth suicide, guys, and entry into the criminal justice system. So that's from the Washington Post and a study going together from the Safe and Together Institute. Child depression, behavioral problems, youth suicide, and becoming a criminal. Who wants that for their children?
Nobody does.
Yeah, so guys, dads, get involved in your kids' lives.
Get involved in your kids' life. If you don't have kids and you see a kid that is suffering, encourage them. Try to be a part of their life, and be a father figure. There's nothing wrong with being a father figure. If you're not a dad, or even if you are a dad and you notice a kid that needs that person, that doesn't have that man in his life, be that man. Step up.
Yeah, and you might have someone who, and your father wasn't there, and you had someone who was absent, an absentee dad, wasn't involved. Maybe you knew who your dad was, but he wasn't involved in your life. And that's affecting you because you probably have a decreased paternal care. In other words, a desire to be a father because you're a future generation, and that was a broken cycle that your absentee dad delivered to you, whether he was there to be absent or... when I say there, I mean you at least knew who the person was, or you don't even know who your dad was, or you didn't have an adoptive father, something like this. Just know that isn't the right way. That's not going to be successful for families. And
Yeah.
it's okay. You can forgive your father even if he doesn't ask you to.
Exactly.
That's what Christ does. Forgive. He tells us to forgive as you have been forgiven. And so we've been forgiven of everything, so we need to forgive others of everything.
Exactly.
I know that's really hard.
Yeah, no. And another stat here: absent fathers are associated with decreased paternal care in the future generations, reinforcing cycles of disengagement across families. That's crazy. So this is how important it is that we as men, we as fathers, need to be a part of our kids' lives, because they see that, and then they will mimic, like they want to be their father. Like most boys, if you're a good dad, they want to be like their dad. Like dad's awesome, right? So let's reinforce that good image of how a good dad
image.
looks.
So if you're the guy that's breaking that cycle and you're now there for your children, just remember that. That's what you're trying to do, is be that good example that you didn't have for you. Build what you didn't receive for your kids and for others. So if your dad did a poor job, maybe he was there, but he just wasn't a very good father, hey, you can break that cycle.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, I'm going to bring this before God. I'm going to ask him. He says in Psalm 147:3 that he heals the brokenhearted and he binds up their wounds. So if you're wounded because your father either wasn't there or he wasn't a very good father, hey, you can go to the Heavenly Father, who's a perfectly Father, and he will help you to get through this.
Oh, yeah.
And he will help you to be a good example to your children. You know, I think of what Karl Bard said. Okay, he's a Scottish theologian that lived, he was just coming in as Teddy Roosevelt was going out. So he was born in 1907, but he said, though no one can go back and make a brand new start, anyone can start from now and make a brand new ending. Okay, so you can't go and do a brand new start again because you already started. But you can start from right now and have a brand new ending.
Yeah. And the thing is,
You can change it.
your maybe fumbled start affects you now. And that's the beautiful part. It's like you would have maybe a different ending if you didn't have that. So don't let it, like we were talking, don't let it rule you. Don't let it own you. Help it guide you to be a better person.
That's right. Yeah. Look at that challenge as, hey, here's something that I can overcome. Because one thing us guys here at Undefeated Men we love a good challenge.
Yep.
And that good challenge can be being a better father than your father was. If you had a good father, then you know the good example, and he's hoping that you're going to build on the foundation he gave you. Mm-hmm. That's what your good father wants you to do.
Yep.
If you didn't have a father, then you got to build the foundation. So for those of us that had a foundation built for us because we had good fathers, then we've got to build on that foundation. And if you were someone who did not have a foundation, then you need to build that foundation.
Yeah.
So you're either a foundation builder or you're someone who's building on the foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. And with this podcast coming to a close, guys, modern day Goliaths, giants to kill. Don't be afraid to recognize them. Don't be afraid to tackle them, because they are not small. They are not they're not going to not affect your life. They already are. If you're struggling with these, they're struggling. They're affecting all of us. Mm-hmm. So let's, as men, start with us, and let's cut them out. Let's cut them from the feet. They have no power over our lives. Let's destroy them.
That's right. These giants, they're real, but so is your strength in Christ. You don't need to face these giants alone. There's friends that will help you. You have the Lord that's going to help you. We have the Holy Spirit for those of us, again, that are Christians that can come alongside of us. Like David, we don't need the world's armor. What we need is faith and preparation and a willingness to run toward the fight.
Yeah.
So stop running away from the fight and just run into it. And remember, the battle is the Lord's. That's what David said. Yeah. The battle is the Lord's, and that's what we need to remember. It's not our fight. It's his fight. We just got to show up. So come with us. Show up for this stuff. Next week, we're going to continue this fight in an episode where we're going to talk about men of prayer, how spiritual discipline can make you stronger. During that time, we're going to unpack how to pray and how that helps us to love and lead like a man of honor.
Yeah.
We don't want you to miss it. Until then, fellas.
Go kill giants.
Yeah, go kill some giants.
Yeah.
Do some giant slaying. A good man's never stuck, my friends.